Welcome to another CHRO Conversation, hosted by the Center for Executive Succession here at the Darla Moore School of Business. My name is Anthony Nyberg, and today we're with Melanie Steinbach of Milliken.
Hi, Anthony.
Thank you for joining us.
It's my pleasure.
So, we've been talking a lot about how HR has really transformed itself over the last 10 or 15 years and become much more strategic. Can you share with us a little bit what that means to you and how that is playing out at Milliken?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I think, HR is one of those functions that it's very easy to get sucked into the operational side of it. The volume of the operational side of HR is just so heavy that you find people with all the right intentions to be connected to the business, but the operational side just sucks them in. It becomes this magnetic force that really is hard to dislodge. And so what we did at Milliken was respect that part of HR and say that part is critical. That part is what buys us the credibility to be able to participate in the more strategic parts of the business, but it can't be all that we do. And so we created this function, HR operations. We name it. We are very proud of it. We show the metrics of our excellence in it proudly. But we now define that as only half of HR, whereas in the past that was all that we were known for. We've now added this entire different skill set to what we're contributing to the organization. So what does that look like? That is really helping our businesses as they go through their planning cycle, understand what the talent implications are going to be to both build those strategies and then to execute them. So we're really helping our businesses develop more robust skills around how they develop strategies, what the capabilities that they need are as they are looking out into markets. How do they segment markets better? Who are the competitors and why are their competitors winning? So doing more of those organizational capability assessments.
So this sounds not at all like HR, at least not traditional HR, right? This is business consulting?
This is business consulting. This is what the best HR people should be doing. This is what, can you imagine if a CFO only did accounting? People would think that they were a failure. And so to me, the best HR people can't just be doing compensation and benefits. That's really important. It is what buys you the credibility to be able to have conversations with your senior leaders around what are the capabilities that they're going to need to activate their strategies in the future. Where are the geographies that are really going to create the next step change in growth. But you have to earn your way into those conversations. And then when you're in those conversations, you've got to be able to have the right level of business acumen to be able to really engage with your partners on it.
So this must create all kinds of new HR challenges in the new HR that people never had thought of before or had not experienced from an HR perspective. Yeah.
Well, it started with, wait, why are you in this meeting?
Okay.
So I think that we've had to, HR has had to figure out what our place is in those meetings, and we've had to kind of elbow our way in with our business partners to make sure that they understood that if HR was in the room, it didn't mean that we were about to fire somebody. It meant that we were really trying to be the voice of talent in the creation or the execution of the strategy. And that's a new voice in the room. At least at Milliken, that's a voice that hadn't been part of the strategy development or execution discussions for a long time. And so the HR VPs are learning how to have those conversations, and the business leaders are learning how to listen to those voices.
So once you bring that voice in, what does that do for the business?
Well, I'm incredibly biased,
Yeah.
so, but I think
So am
that,
I, actually.
yeah, I know. But I think that it really does help those strategies gain traction faster. So I'll give you an example. We were thinking about going into a new market in one of our businesses. And in the past, we would have just said, yeah, that seems like a good market for that business, right? We would look at
all based on the financials.
All based on the
Sure.
financials, right? And all based on the kind of the general kind of macroeconomic data that we could find. It would never even cross our minds to ask what the talent pool looked like in those markets to be able to activate the strategy. So if we were bringing this product to this market for the first time, it's safe to assume that nobody had any experience with that product. Was that going to be a critical factor in the launch of that product in that market? And those are the questions that weren't getting asked. Now that they are getting asked, now that we're actually planning for that talent in advance of going into that market, we're able to activate the strategies that much faster.
Okay, so it sounds like this is really going to drive business in the future if other companies adopt it the way Milliken has.
That's the whole reason that we're in business, right? I tell everybody HR can't exist without the business, and the business can't exist without HR. So we are all about helping our business to grow.
So are there different competencies now that are needed in HR professionals to be able to drive business this way?
I think so. I think, you know, I've only been a CHRO for 3 years, but as I look back on the CHROs that Milliken might have had in the past, I think that they were asked to be really operationally excellent and to be subject matter experts in the HR disciplines. They were asked to be excellent at policies, HR policies. They were asked to be excellent at labor laws, and they were. But the requirements shifted underneath them, and now it's more important that our HR leaders understand how we make money and why we win than it is that they understand the labor law nuances in every single country that we operate in. It's way more important that our division presidents trust the judgment of our HR VPs than it is if they know every single nuance of the ACA. We have subject matter experts for those questions, but in our business partner roles in HR, it's really important that that business acumen and that judgment take center stage.
That they have great judgment and they're trusted, so they can actually be these trusted consultants or trusted advisors.
Well, I think one leads to the other, right?
Yes.
That great judgment breeds the trust that you need to keep getting consulted more and more often.
And you alluded a little bit to it when you said you had to elbow your way in a bit, but can you say more, because it appears from the outside that you have really transformed the HR function at Milliken. So can you describe a little bit about what the challenges were involved in that, or what you've had to come up against, or how did you actually get your seat at the table, as it were?
Yeah. Well, I'm pointing to my gray hair here fondly. This didn't just happen. But I think there were a couple of things. Number one, I had the CEO support from day one, and that was critical. People knew from the start that our CEO felt that HR needed to be involved in our strategic conversations going forward. And so
that a recognition just of the growing importance of talent as a competitive force?
It was. I think it was also a reflection of a slight adjustment to our business strategy. We had been really transforming our financial performance from a bottom line perspective. We really needed to focus on our top line, and he recognized that top line focus was going to require a more diverse set of decisions to be made, and he knew that was going to require different capabilities from our talent, and that's why I was brought in to help develop those capabilities. But I think in terms of finding your space, he was helpful initially, but the CEO support only gets you so far, and then you have to actually start earning the seat, right? He can pull up the chair, but unless you're going to contribute when you're sitting at the table, you're going to get pushed to the back pretty soon. And so for me, it was really important to ask a lot of questions about our business. And
that's somewhat counterintuitive, right? That the way to show that you belong is to ask a lot of questions?
It is, although in HR, I think that the reason that that was so refreshing to our business leaders was that they had never had an HR leader want to understand deeply how their business worked. HR basically just kind of took the business at face value. It is what it is. Mm-hmm. It has this many people in it. It has this diversity profile. It has this turnover rate. It was looking at businesses from a purely HR perspective rather than looking at it from a business or market perspective. And so once I understood that, what was this a market leading business or was this a laggard? Were we on the upswing? Was this in a growing business or was this a business that had been in maintenance mode for a while? It helped me to shape my view of the mosaic of businesses that we had and the mosaic of leaders that we had. And that really helped me to understand what we needed to do to turn on that growth lever.
So in this case, curiosity and asking questions actually then helps you both show that you're interested and gain the knowledge you need to really contribute to the business.
It did, and then reflecting it back. I think that was another thing that if I could point to something that helped me gain credibility with my peers, it was, this is what I'm hearing, is this what you're saying? And then I think the next step, once they realized that I deserved to be in the room, was making sure that I found my voice in those conversations. And then I had to tone down the business curiosity, and I had to really focus on being the voice of talent in the room. And our CEO was a great coach for me on this and reminded me repeatedly, if you don't ask questions about talent, nobody's going to. Everybody's going to ask about the numbers. Okay. But if you don't ask about talent, nobody's going to. So that is your role. And it has become a really important voice in helping us make better decisions.
So it sounds like another critical competency is the ability to communicate well, both from a listening perspective and sharing information and helping convince people of, in this case, the importance of talent.
I can't say enough about how important communication skills are. And I would say it's clarity of thought, making sure that you are able to distill what you hear into a few succinct points, and then being able to clearly communicate that at multiple levels. So back to my peers, up to my boss, this is what I'm hearing in the organization, down to my team, here's what I'm hearing the business needs from us, here's what I think this means for HR. All of those modes are so important. I think there's not a function in business today where communication skills are unimportant, but HR really requires a special skill here.
And changing gears just a little bit, but here at the Center for Executive Succession, one of the things we like to spend a lot of time thinking about is executive succession or C-suite succession. Can you share a little bit about the role that you think HR should be playing in executive succession?
I'm passionate about succession. That's why I'm a member of the center. And here's why. I think that succession is the process that HR can use to ensure business continuity. It is it's the one tool that we have that we can say we are looking ahead of the current leadership state to see where we can provide some business continuity. And we are challenged in that a lot of the leaders that we work with either don't want to think about leaving their position, or they don't want to think about the fact that they need to hire someone who is much better than they are to be able to take the position on when it's a bigger and more complex role. And so it's an area where I'm really grateful that the center is spending so much time doing so much research here, because it's one that I don't think that we've been able to crack. How do we make our leaders feel more personal accountability for developing their own successors? And how do we make sure that the successors that they're developing are better than they are?
Thank you very much for joining us today. We sincerely appreciate having you down here. Our students have they've already been giving us great feedback about your having joined us and what they've learned from you, and we as faculty feel the same way. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you all for joining us here again in CHRO Conversations. Today we were joined with Melanie Steinbach of Milliken, and certainly I found it extremely informative, and I'm sure all of you will too.